It started with a bark. Not just any bark, but the kind that stiffens your spine and freezes the air in the room. The kind that says something's wrong, even when everything looks fine. Officer Jenna Brooks had heard that bark before. Once on a raid where Axel sniffed out a stash of fentanyl inside a baby's formula canister. Another time at a traffic stop, when a hidden compartment in the trunk turned up a missing toddler. But here, in a cheerful daycare kitchen surrounded by smiling kids and the smell of baked chicken nuggets, it felt impossibly out of place. Axel, her canine partner, a 5-year-old German shepherd, was on full alert. Hackles raised, ears forward, eyes locked on a foil-covered tray sitting on the stovetop. Without hesitation, he leapt. "Axel, down!" Jenna commanded, but it was too late. The big dog planted both front paws squarely on the counter and let out another guttural bark, one after the other, like gunshots against the tile. Everyone in the room jumped. A juice box slipped from a toddler's hand and splattered across the floor. 2 teachers gasped, one stumbling backward. Mrs. Lambert, the daycare director, forced a laugh. "Well, someone's not a fan of our lunch menu." But Jenna wasn't laughing. Just 20 minutes earlier, the visit had been routine. Every few months, she and Axel did walkthroughs at local schools and daycares. Part safety protocol, part PR. Shake a few paws, show the kids the flashing lights on the cruiser, reinforce community trust. Today had seemed no different. The walls were lined with crayon-colored handprints. Laughter spilled down the hall. One kid proudly showed her how he could spell giraffe, though the F's were all backward. Jenna loved these calls. They were a rare break from the darker parts of her job. But now Axel was frozen, eyes sharp, tail stiff like a board, still barking at the tray on the stove. Something was wrong. "Seriously, Officer Brooks," Mrs. Lambert said, stepping forward, "can you get him down? He's scaring the kids." Jenna reached for his collar and gave the command again, more firmly this time. "Axel, Platz!" Axel dropped to the floor, reluctantly, his gaze never leaving the tray. "What is it, buddy?" Jenna murmured, crouching beside him. "You smell something?" She stood and walked to the stove. The tray, now rattling slightly from Axel's claws, was half covered with foil. She peeled it back carefully. Just nuggets. Chicken nuggets, probably frozen and heated in bulk. She leaned down and sniffed. Nothing odd, no bleach, no chemical tang, just breadcrumbs, grease, and processed chicken. Still, the hairs on her arms wouldn't go down. "You mind if I take a sample?" she asked the cook, a young guy in a Cubs cap. He looked at Mrs. Lambert, who shrugged. "Be my guest," she said, "though I'm pretty sure Axel just doesn't like daycare food." 15 minutes later, Jenna was back in her cruiser, a plastic baggie containing 1 nugget sealed tight and marked for the lab. She didn't want to raise alarms. This could be nothing. Dogs had off days. But her gut told her otherwise. She glanced back at Axel through the rearview mirror. He was still stiff, eyes wide, ears twitching, even in the quiet. "You've never barked like that in a daycare," she said quietly. "Not once." Axel made a low whine, then lowered his head onto his paws. The call came just before 7:00 p.m., as Jenna was about to take off her boots. "Brooks," said Barry from the county lab, "you sitting down?" Jenna straightened. "I'm listening." "There's trace amounts of ethylene glycol in that sample." Her heart skipped. "Like antifreeze?" "Yeah, not a lot, but it's there. And it's not a cross-contamination thing. We double-checked." "Jesus." Her stomach turned. "Enough to hurt someone?" "Depends on the dose, but for a child, easily." Jenna closed her eyes, a sharp cold panic crawling into her bones. "Don't tell anyone yet. I'll be there in the morning." Before we dive deeper, if stories like this move you, and you believe in the courage of animals who save lives, consider subscribing to our channel Heroes for Animals. We share powerful, true stories just like this every week. Jenna didn't sleep that night. She kept playing the moment over in her head. Axel lunging, barking, refusing to back down. She wondered what would have happened if he hadn't been there, if those nuggets had made it to the kids' lunch plates. And the bigger question, how the hell had poison gotten into a tray of daycare food? Morning broke cloudy and cold. Jenna parked across the street from the daycare and watched the building quietly. Parents dropped off their kids, chatting idly, unaware of the narrow escape their children had lived through just the day before. She knocked on the door just before 8 a.m. Mrs. Lambert greeted her, a little surprised. "Another visit?" she asked. "Follow up," Jenna replied. "And I'd like to see the kitchen again." Inside, everything looked normal. Axel padded beside her quietly, sniffing the air. The food prep station had been wiped down, nothing left on the stove. The cook greeted her, nervous now. Jenna nodded to him, but didn't smile. "Any new deliveries this morning?" she asked. "No, ma'am," he replied. Jenna glanced toward the corner, where a small security camera sat above the pantry door. "Can I take a look at yesterday's kitchen footage?" Mrs. Lambert hesitated. "It's been glitchy lately. Our tech guy said the hard drive might need replacing." Jenna raised an eyebrow. "So no video from yesterday?" "Just static. We've been meaning to fix it." Axel suddenly pulled toward the utility closet. He let out a low growl. "What's in there?" Jenna asked. "Just cleaning stuff." Jenna walked over and opened the door. Inside, mops, bleach, gloves, and a half-empty container of pale blue liquid. No label. Axel sat stiff, teeth bared, a quiet rumble in his throat. Jenna picked up the container, holding it carefully. "What's this?" The cook leaned in. "That's not ours." "You sure?" "Positive. I only use what's on the checklist." That isn't on it. By the time Jenna left, she had the container sealed and secured. Axel sat beside her in the cruiser again, calmer now, but Jenna's heart was racing. Someone had brought that into a daycare. Someone had access. And Axel, faithful, precise, never wrong Axel, had tried to tell them all. Jenna didn't know who had done it yet, but thanks to a dog's bark, she knew where to start. Axel didn't sleep that night either. He paced the length of Officer Jenna Brooks's living room like a soldier on guard duty, occasionally stopping by the back door, sniffing the air, then returning to circle again. He paused at the kitchen entrance once, ears pricked toward the empty countertop as if it might still hold the poison he'd detected earlier that day. Jenna watched him from the couch, cradling a mug of cold tea she'd forgotten to sip. The container of unlabeled blue liquid was now locked away in an evidence box at the precinct. The food sample from the daycare had tested positive for ethylene glycol, antifreeze, and though it wasn't a lethal dose on its own, if that tray had made it to the kids' lunch tables, someone could have died. Someone had tried to hurt children. The thought made her jaw clench. But the motive? Still a mystery. At 7 a.m., Jenna stood in front of the precinct coffee machine, her third cup brewing while Axel sat beside her in full uniform, vest on, badge clipped, alert as always. "You back at that daycare today?" asked Sergeant Ray from behind the desk, eyeing her over a jelly donut. "Yeah, I need more than just a chemical trace. I need a suspect." He lowered the donut. "You think this was deliberate?" "I think someone put antifreeze into the food supply for toddlers, Ray. That doesn't sound like an accident." Axel huffed quietly, as if agreeing. Ray stared a moment, then nodded. "You want a second set of eyes? I can send Taylor with you." "I appreciate it, but Axel and I got this." Jenna turned back toward the door, Axel falling into step beside her like a shadow. The daycare center was already in motion when Jenna pulled up. Bright backpacks bounced on tiny shoulders. One kid wore a cape and galloped toward the entrance. Parents waved their goodbyes and sipped coffee from paper cups. Also normal, also unaware. Inside, Mrs. Lambert greeted her with a cautious smile. "Back again?" Jenna nodded. "Still following up? Mind if I poke around some more?" The director hesitated, then stepped aside. "Of course." Jenna made her way back to the kitchen, Axel trotting ahead. The cook, Greg stood at the prep station dicing carrots. "Morning," Jenna said, watching him closely. "Any deliveries today?" "Just milk and paper towels," Greg replied. "Want to check the manifest?" "I do." She took the clipboard he handed over. It matched the dates and quantities for the past week. No mention of antifreeze, no anomalies. But Jenna noticed something else, a signature at the bottom, printed in shaky handwriting. K. Dunn. "Who's this?" she asked. Greg blinked. "Oh, that's Kyle, the janitor. He signs off on delivery intake when I'm not around." "Kyle Dunn," she repeated. "Yeah, hired through some temp agency. He's quiet, shows up early, leaves on time, and keeps to himself. Pretty much." That name sent a chill crawling down Jenna's spine. Back in the cruiser, she ran a search through department databases. Kyle Dunn, 37, temporary custodian. No criminal record, but one sealed juvenile file from Arkansas. She couldn't see what it was, but she noted a flagged incident involving a school and vandalism. She glanced at Axel, who was resting but not asleep. "We're checking out his file." By noon, Jenna was sitting across from Becky at Child Safe Staffing Agency. The woman had tight curls and glasses with rhinestone rims, and she was more than willing to help. "Kyle? Oh, sure, I remember him. Quiet guy, polite, doesn't talk much, but gets the job done. Did he request the daycare placement?" "Nope, we assign based on need. He's worked at hospitals, banks, schools, you name it." Jenna raised an eyebrow. "Any reason he only stays at one place a few weeks?" Becky shifted. "Nothing major. Some clients said he made them uncomfortable, not because he did anything, just a vibe." "A vibe?" Like he was always watching, never smiling. Later that day, Jenna returned to the daycare with Axel. It was quieter now, nap time. She asked to speak to Kyle. Mrs. Lambert looked surprised. "He just left. Said he wasn't feeling well." Jenna frowned. "That normal? He usually stays till 3:00. She turned to Axel. "Let's check the closet again." Inside the utility closet, the mop bucket was gone. So was the container of blue liquid. Gone. Jenna's stomach flipped. He's trying to cover his tracks. At 3:30 p.m., Jenna drove to Kyle's listed address, a rundown apartment building 3 blocks from the train yard. Peeling paint. A mattress propped up in the hallway. The smell of fried food and mildew clung to the air. No answer at Unit 7C, but Axel sniffed once, twice, then pawed at the base of the door. Jenna called it in. 10 minutes later, backup arrived. They entered with caution. Kyle wasn't there. But in the small, dirty kitchen, they found a grocery bag filled with cleaning rags and a bottle of antifreeze, same brand, half empty. On the wall beside the fridge, someone had scrawled a name in black marker, Denise L. Jenna's breath caught. Denise Lambert. Back at the precinct, Jenna flipped through everything she could find. Emails, contracts, daycare rosters. Kyle had no reason to target children, but he had a reason to target Denise Lambert. 12 years ago, a staff complaint had led to Kyle's firing from another school. The person who filed the report? Denise Lambert, then assistant principal. Kyle had lost everything. No more school contracts, no references. The trail went cold after that, until now. This wasn't about kids. This was revenge. By the time the sun dipped below the trees, Jenna stood once more at the daycare's entrance. Denise was shaking. "He was trying to hurt me?" she whispered. Jenna nodded. "But you weren't the one eating the food." Denise sank onto a bench. "Oh my God, we always serve staff first." "Until yesterday," Jenna added. "The kids would have eaten it." Denise broke down. Jenna didn't comfort her, not yet. There were still charges to file, a warrant to issue, and a dog to thank. She turned to Axel, kneeling to his level. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Axel blinked, tail thumping softly against the tile. That night, Jenna took Axel to the park. Not to track or search or sniff out danger, but just to walk. Under the glow of street lamps and the hum of cicadas, She let him run free, his paws pounding against the dirt like a heartbeat, because he had saved them. Because somewhere out there evil had almost won. But not on Axel's watch. Rain hammered the windshield like nails on sheet metal. Officer Jenna Brooks tightened her grip on the steering wheel as her cruiser idled outside the daycare. Axel sat beside her in the passenger seat, unusually quiet, eyes scanning the foggy morning like a soldier waiting for orders. It had been 36 hours since Kyle Dunn vanished. He'd left his apartment without a trace. No car, no credit card activity, no phone pings. The antifreeze container found in his kitchen matched the chemical signature of the poisoned nuggets. The motive was solid. His link to Denise Lambert, undeniable. And yet Kyle was gone, vanished into the cracks of the city like he knew how to disappear. Jenna adjusted her badge and stepped out into the drizzle. Axel jumped down beside her, ears perked, tail stiff. Inside the daycare, the mood was tense. Parents spoke in hushed tones. Teachers avoided eye contact. Denise Lambert's usual composed demeanor had been replaced with something pale and rattled. "I can't stop thinking about what would have happened," she told Jenna as they stood in her office. "If you and Axel hadn't come—" "We did," Jenna said, "and we're not done." She motioned toward the hallway. "I want to see that security system again." The tiny tech closet behind the front desk was packed with cords, dust, and blinking lights. The DVR box sat beneath a stack of file folders. Jenna leaned in. "You said this had been glitching?" Denise nodded. "Our tech guy said the footage auto-erased due to a system error." Jenna frowned. "May I?" She unplugged the HDMI and connected it to her tablet. The file list popped up, each entry from the past week marked with red icons, corrupted, unreadable, except for one. Day Kitchen HAM02 backup.mov. She clicked. The screen blinked and played. Grainy footage filled the screen. The daycare kitchen, time-stamped 2 days before Axel's outburst. At 5:42 a.m., a man entered. Dark hoodie, baseball cap pulled low. He walked straight to the prep station. In his hand, a clear bottle with a blue label. Jenna paused the video and zoomed in. There, on the label, faint lettering, WindPro Engine Guard. Antifreeze. It was him. Back at the precinct, Jenna sat with the department's IT expert, running the footage through enhancement software. "Any chance of facial ID?" she asked. "Low," he muttered. "But I might be able to match posture and gait with other known footage if you give me something." Jenna handed over a copy of Kyle's employment video from the staffing agency, an orientation clip showing him mopping a hallway. The software compared stride lengths, shoulder movements, the way the man used his left hand more than his right. A few minutes later, a match flashed on screen. 96% probability. Kyle Dunn. "That's enough for a warrant," Jenna whispered. She filed the official fugitive status that afternoon. Kyle Dunn was now wanted in connection with attempted mass poisoning, with a federal alert issued for interstate travel. His image went out across 5 states, but Jenna wasn't at ease. There was something that didn't sit right with her. The poisoning was personal, yes, but it was also reckless. Too many variables, too many chances to get caught. And Kyle didn't seem like a man with no plan. That night, Axel wouldn't settle. He paced the back fence line of Jenna's yard, growling low at nothing in particular. She stepped outside, raincoat thrown over her pajamas, and called to him. "Axel, what's going on?" He barked once, then stared at the woods behind the house. Jenna felt it too. Something was off. She clipped his leash, grabbed her flashlight, and followed him into the trees. They walked quietly for about 10 minutes. Nothing but the sound of leaves and soft earth underfoot. Jenna scanned the darkness, her beam cutting through rain-slicked branches. Then Axel stopped, ears stiff, body locked. He growled, deeper this time. A warning. Jenna raised the flashlight and saw it. A trail of muddy footprints leading to the back of her property line. Fresh, heavy, and ending at the gate near the side alley. where someone could easily hop a fence and be gone. She felt her pulse quicken. Someone had been watching her house. The next morning, she returned to the daycare with a new sense of urgency. This wasn't over. She met Denise in the kitchen. "Any unfamiliar deliveries this morning?" Jenna asked. "No," Denise said, shaking her head. "Everything seems normal." Greg, the cook, entered a few minutes later with 2 crates of produce. Axel sat by the fridge, alert but calm, until Greg opened the pantry door. Axel bolted upright and barked sharply. Jenna turned fast. Inside the pantry, a second tray of nuggets, raw, not yet cooked, placed suspiciously close to the cleaning supplies. "Greg," she said carefully, "did you prepare those?" Greg looked confused. "No, I haven't started prepping lunch yet." "Who brought them in?" I don't know. I thought they were from the delivery this morning." "They weren't on the list." Axel barked again, louder this time. Jenna opened the tray carefully. The scent hit her instantly. Sweet? Slightly chemical? Undeniably wrong. Back at the lab, the results came in within the hour. Same chemical compound, same antifreeze source. Second attempt. Jenna slammed the file shut. "He's back." The new tray was fingerprinted. Partial print found, smeared, incomplete. But enough to confirm Kyle Dunn. He had returned to the daycare, entered unnoticed, poisoned the food, and vanished again. This time, though, he'd made a mistake. Security footage caught a brief shot of him leaving through a back exit, this time without the cap. Face half-turned, rein on his shoulders. They had him. That evening, Jenna addressed the press, briefly, calmly. "The children are safe," she assured reporters. Thanks to K9 Axel's detection and continued vigilance, no one was harmed. The suspect is being pursued as a matter of public safety. One reporter asked, "Is it true your dog discovered both attempts?" Jenna looked at Axel, sitting proudly beside her. "He didn't just find the poison," she said. "He stopped a tragedy, twice." Later that night, Jenna stood by her window, watching the storm roll in. Her phone buzzed. A call from dispatch. "Brooks," she answered. "Just got a report from the bus terminal downtown," said the voice on the other end. "Someone matching Kyle's description tried to board a Greyhound heading west. The clerk recognized him from the news." "Did they detain him?" "He ran." Jenna's grip tightened on the phone. "He's running out of places to hide." She looked down at Axel, who sat at her feet, head raised, eyes locked on hers. "Let's find him." The image was grainy, but unmistakable. There he was, Kyle Dunn, caught in profile by a camera the daycare director swore had been broken for months. His hoodie was soaked, his shoes left a trail of muddy prints on the back tile, and his face, finally visible, showed none of the fear you'd expect from a man being hunted. He looked calm, like he had time, like he was playing a game only he knew the rules to. Officer Jenna Brooks sat in the precinct's surveillance lab, elbows on the desk, coffee growing cold beside her. Axel was curled at her feet, his head on her boot, but his eyes were wide open, watching. Detective Nolan leaned in next to her, scrubbing through the video on the screen. "He slipped in right before deliveries started," Nolan muttered. "Used the staff entrance, knew the routine." "He'd studied it," Jenna said. "He wasn't just trying to hurt Denise anymore." "No," she replied, voice steady. "He wanted to finish what he started. And he almost did." Nolan paused the footage at the moment Kyle placed the food tray on the counter, right near the pantry, hidden behind crates of produce. "No gloves this time," Nolan added. "He's getting sloppy. Or desperate." Jenna left the precinct just before 10 p.m. Axel beside her as always. The rain had stopped, but the pavement still glistened under the streetlights. Downtown was quiet, save for the occasional taxi and the low hum of neon signs still glowing from bars and corner stores. She didn't drive straight home. Instead, she took a left on Sycamore Avenue and pulled into the small alley behind the community center, an unlit stretch of pavement where Kyle had once worked as a janitor. She turned off the engine and sat in the silence. eyes scanning the building's rear exit. "He's not done," she said quietly, as much to herself as to Axel. "He's not leaving town. He's circling." Axel lifted his head, ears perked. "He's watching us." Back at her house, Jenna placed a fresh kettle on the stove and opened her laptop. She had dozens of pages of Kyle's employment records, school suspensions, background checks, notes from his staffing agency. His sealed juvenile record still blocked her from seeing the full picture. But one thing was clear. Kyle didn't react. He simmered. The school he'd been expelled from after Denise's report had also been flagged years later for vandalism. Files missing, teacher's lounge flooded. No one ever found who did it. But Kyle had been seen near the grounds days before. He wasn't violent in the traditional sense. He was calculated, silent. He didn't want attention. So why was he being so bold now? The next morning, Jenna returned to the daycare before anyone arrived. Denise met her at the door, red-eyed but determined. "I reviewed the staff schedule," Denise said, holding out a printed list. "Nobody saw him come in." "He knew your blind spots," Jenna replied. They walked the halls together, Axel sniffing door frames as they passed. "You said that camera by the staff entrance was broken?" Jenna asked. "Yes," Denise said. "Or at least, that's what our tech guy told me 3 months ago." "Who fixed it?" "I don't know." Jenna stopped walking. "You never had it repaired?" "No." Jenna felt her stomach turn. "Then who did?" Later that day, she tracked down the daycare's tech support company. Small, 2-man operation run out of a strip mall office on Lincoln Avenue. The receptionist looked up when Jenna flashed her badge. "Did you install or repair camera equipment at Rose Hill Daycare in the last month?" Jenna asked. The man checked his tablet. "Nope. Last work order was back in April, 3 months ago. System check and wire replacement. No emergency call-out since then?" "No, ma'am." Jenna's pulse picked up. "You're sure?" "Positive." She leaned in. "Who has access to your supply or repair gear?" The guy blinked. "Just us." "And your disposal bin? The one out back?" He hesitated. "We, sometimes toss old DVR parts or cables. Sometimes people come digging." "Who?" Jenna asked. "We don't track the trash, officer." But Jenna already knew. It all came together slowly, but chillingly clear. Kyle had found an old DVR unit in the tech company's trash, wired it to the daycare's system, recorded the kitchen for weeks, maybe longer, without anyone knowing. The glitch had been his way in. And the footage Jenna found? It hadn't been saved by the system. It was backed up by Kyle himself. And for some reason, he'd left it behind. On purpose. Jenna stared at the paused frame of his face for the 10th time that night. "He's telling us he's smarter," she muttered. "That he's in control." Axel whined softly beside her. "But he's also unraveling." She picked up her phone and called Nolan. "I need everything you can find on Kyle's last known contacts," she told him. "Family, former co-workers, old landlords, anyone he's spoken to in the last 5 years." "You think he's hiding with someone?" "No," Jenna said. "I think he's waiting for one." The next day, Jenna paid a visit to the woman Kyle had briefly dated 6 years ago. Annette Collins lived on the outskirts of town, near the old train yard. Former co-worker from a maintenance gig. Records showed they shared an address for 5 months. Her number had been disconnected. Jenna found the trailer quiet, parked near a field of overgrown weeds and rusted-out car parts. A wind chime jingled lazily above the front porch. She knocked. No answer. Axel sniffed at the door. Jenna opened the screen slowly. The smell hit her first. Rotting food, mold, and something coppery beneath. Inside, overturned furniture, a mattress on the floor, and on the wall, written in smeared black marker, "I left you safe. I left you out of it. But they made me come back." Below it, taped to the wall, was a printed photo, grainy, of Jenna. Walking Axel near her house, zoomed, cropped, watched. She called it in. By nightfall, the search for Kyle went from local priority to multi-agency operation. The FBI's behavioral team offered assistance. Psychological profiling confirmed what Jenna already feared. Kyle wasn't trying to escape. He was circling back. He was planning something final. Jenna sat on the back steps of her house that night, Axel beside her, flashlight in hand. She scanned the tree line again and again. "You're not hiding anymore," she whispered. "You're preparing." Axel's head jerked suddenly, ears forward. A faint snap, like a branch breaking, echoed from the darkness beyond her fence. Jenna stood, her body tense. Axel growled. She drew her weapon, heart thudding, flashlight beam scanning the edge of the woods. Nothing. But she knew he was out there, watching. The label wasn't supposed to mean anything. Jenna Brooks had stared at the discarded bottle for 10 minutes before noticing it. Hidden in grime, faded by rain. The container was tucked beneath a rusted bench behind the daycare's fenced-in playground, where no one had any reason to look. But Axel had pulled her there, nose low, body rigid, and barked twice. That bark again, the one that meant, "Here, look closer." And there it was, a worn sticker on the side of the half-used bottle of Wind Pro antifreeze. Under layers of dirt and faded ink, someone had scratched in 2 words, "Denise's lunch." Inside the precinct evidence room, the label sat under glass now, photographed and logged. Denise Lambert's name was written in narrow, slanted letters, painstakingly etched with a ballpoint pen. The writing matched samples from Kyle Dunn's old HR files. "He wasn't just improvising," Detective Nolan said as he stood beside Jenna. "He had a routine, a signature." Jenna nodded. He labeled it for her. Nolan shook his head, almost in disbelief. "He wanted her to eat it, no one else. Then why go after the kids?" Jenna looked down at Axel, who was lying on the floor of the evidence room like a sentry. "He didn't mean to," she said slowly. "He wasn't thinking about the kids, just her. But when she didn't eat it, and the food got redistributed, he didn't care what happened after." Jenna drove to the daycare that afternoon, Axel in the back seat, eyes fixed on the window. She wasn't wearing her uniform today, just jeans, a soft gray hoodie, and a badge clipped to her belt. She looked more like a parent than a cop. The children didn't recognize the difference. They waved at her as she walked past, sticky fingers and juice-stained mouths smiling brightly. The innocence of it hit her hard. Inside the director's office, Denise sat stiffly, her hands wrapped tightly around a ceramic mug she hadn't sipped from. Her hair was pulled back, eyes rimmed red. "I thought I'd seen the worst of him," she whispered. "When he was fired, when he screamed at me in that parking lot years ago. But I had no idea." "You didn't cause this," Jenna said gently. "I gave his name to the superintendent. I filed the complaint. You did the right thing. That's not the same as being responsible." Denise's voice broke. "I never imagined he'd hold on to it for this long." Jenna didn't speak for a moment. Then she slid a printed photo across the desk. An image from the security footage, showing Kyle standing alone in the kitchen with the food tray. The label wasn't visible, but the timestamp was clear. Just before sunrise. Just before the kids arrived. "We found this on a container," Jenna said softly. "He labeled it with your name." Denise stared at the photo, her mouth trembling. "He meant for you to be the only one to get hurt," Jenna added. "But he didn't anticipate your staff rotation." Denise put the mug down. Her hands were shaking. "What happens now?" she asked. Jenna stood. "We bring him in, and we stop him before he gets desperate again." The next 24 hours were a blur. A bus station employee spotted Kyle walking into the Greyhound terminal in a dark coat, but he ducked out before police arrived. A gas station clerk on the outskirts of town reported a man matching his description, buying protein bars and matches with loose change. Surveillance confirmed it. He was still in the area. He wasn't trying to leave. He was preparing something. At 2 a.m., Jenna was reviewing maps in her kitchen, Axel lying near the fridge, when her phone buzzed. It was Nolan. "We got a tip from a retired janitor who worked with Kyle about 7 years ago. Said Kyle once mentioned, A quiet place where nobody checks meters. Jenna sat up. Where? Abandoned water treatment facility outside New Hudson. County never sold it. No utilities connected anymore. It's been dead for years. How far? 25 minutes, give or take. I'm going. The wind howled through the cracked concrete as Jenna stepped onto the grounds of the abandoned facility. Flashlight beam cutting through dust and dark. Axel trotted ahead, silent and sure. His nose brushed low to the earth, scanning. The building had been boarded up, but someone had pried the side door open. Jenna crouched low, weapon drawn. Axel, search! He slipped through the doorway like smoke. Jenna followed. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and rust. Old locker rooms lined the hallway. Storage bins tipped over. Broken glass and footprints on the floor. And then Axel barked. Once. Short, controlled. Jenna raised her light and saw the figure crouched near the far wall, pulling something from a duffel bag. Kyle. He turned slowly, squinting into the light. He didn't flinch. I knew you'd find me, he said flatly. Step away from the bag, Jenna ordered. Hands where I can see them. He raised them, but smiled. I wasn't going to do anything today. Axel growled. You labeled the bottle, Jenna said, stepping closer. You signed your work, Kyle. I gave her what she deserved. She didn't even eat it. She was supposed to. I watched her for weeks. You almost killed children. That wasn't the plan. His voice cracked. It was never about them. Jenna's grip tightened. But you came back, and you tried again. I needed her to feel it, to know it was me. But she didn't. You didn't even get close. Kyle's eyes flicked toward the bag. You think I'm done? In one swift movement, Jenna pulled the leash at her side. Axel, guard! The German shepherd lunged forward, teeth bared, blocking Kyle from the bag with precision and force. Kyle froze, face paling. Jenna moved in fast, cuffing him before he could react. You're done, she said, voice low. Hours later, Kyle was behind bars, charged with attempted murder, tampering with food, and endangering minors. The duffel bag had contained more antifreeze, maps of local schools, daycare schedules, and Denise Lambert's photo paperclip to a drawing of the building. He had been planning something far worse. Axel was hailed as a hero for the third time. But Jenna didn't celebrate. She stood at the edge of the daycare playground that afternoon, watching the children run and laugh as if the last few days hadn't nearly changed their world. Denise came to stand beside her, quiet. He's really gone? She asked. For good, Jenna replied. Thank God. She looked down at Axel and smiled faintly. You're one hell of a dog, she whispered. Axel wagged his tail once, then sat in the grass, content to watch the children play. No barking, no growling, no alarms. For now. The courtroom was quiet, except for the rhythmic tapping of Jenna Brooks's thumb against her thigh. She sat in the back row, uniform crisp, hair pulled into a tight braid, Axel at her feet wearing his black vest. The courtroom wasn't full, just a few reporters, daycare staff, and Denise Lambert sitting 2 benches away, shoulders squared but face unreadable. Across the room, behind thick bulletproof glass and a pale green jumpsuit, Kyle Dunn sat motionless. He hadn't said a word since his arrest. Not during processing, not during his psychiatric evaluation, not even to his court-appointed attorney. But today, the first day of his trial, he finally requested to speak, and everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. Judge Rowley, a no-nonsense woman in her early 60s, gave Kyle the nod. You've asked to address the court. You may proceed. Kyle stood slowly, his voice, when it came, was flat, emotionless. I didn't go there for the kids, he said. I never wanted to hurt them. Jenna felt her jaw tighten. They were collateral. I know that sounds bad. I know what I did was wrong. But I didn't do it for thrill or chaos. I did it because no one ever sees the ones like me. He paused, eyes sweeping the room. People see the principals, the directors, the teachers. Not the ones who mop floors at 3 a.m. I gave my life to places like that. And when she took that away, I lost everything. I lost my place. He looked at Denise, who didn't flinch. I labeled that tray because it was meant for her, not those kids. But once I realized the food had been served to them, I couldn't stop. I was already a monster in everyone's eyes. He sat down without waiting to be excused. The courtroom was dead still. Outside, reporters swarmed the sidewalk. Jenna ignored them. Axel walked confidently beside her, tail high, eyes forward. Officer Brooks, did you anticipate a confession? Is it true the children were never his intended target? What happens to Axel after this case? She stopped at that last one. Axel continues to serve, she said. He does what he's always done, protects this community. She didn't add that this might be their last case together. Not yet. Back at the precinct, Jenna placed Axel's vest on the hook by her desk. He stretched out under the heater grate like he owned the place. Nolan stepped in with the coffee in each hand. Big moment, he said. Jenna nodded, taking one of the cups. Yeah, still doesn't feel like closure. Because he made people afraid of what should be safe. She looked out the window. No, because we were too late twice. Nolan tilted his head. We stopped a tragedy. We cleaned up the edge of it, she replied. But I can't stop thinking about how close it came. We got lucky. Axel smelled what no one else could. Then thank God for that dog. Jenna glanced down. I thank him every day. 2 weeks later, the courtroom sentence came in. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Kyle Dunn would spend the rest of his days in a federal psychiatric facility. But that didn't mean peace came easy. Denise took a leave of absence. Several parents pulled their children from the daycare, even after it reopened under new protocols and full security. The town held a candlelight vigil not just for what could have happened, but for the belief that danger could creep in so quietly. Jenna was there, but she didn't speak. Axel sat beside her in silence, the flickering candlelight dancing across his dark eyes. A few days after the vigil, Jenna drove up to the foothills outside of town, the place where her department trained new K-9 officers. The building was simple, a barn-style facility with obstacle courses, old scent fields, and a shaded field where dogs could roam. She had Axel's leash in her hand, but didn't need it. He walked freely, pausing only to sniff the gate before pushing through it. You sure you're ready? Nolan asked, joining her. She took a deep breath. I don't know, but I think he is. Most officers don't get to choose when their partner retires. No, she said, but Axel's given me every instinct he had. And now, he deserves peace. Nolan nodded. They stood in silence as Axel trotted into the open grass, tail wagging, head lifted toward the breeze. The official retirement ceremony was small, just the department and a few family members. They gave Axel a custom collar with his name stitched in blue thread and a plaque that read, "For service, loyalty, and the instinct to save lives." Jenna kept the plaque on her bookshelf at home, next to his first puppy photo from training days, and the chew toy he still carried around the house like a badge. Axel adapted quickly to life without patrols. He slept in, barked at squirrels, and developed a strange obsession with the doorbell, even though Jenna never had visitors. But every time she pulled on her boots for work, he'd watch her from the couch, ears low. Stay, she'd tell him gently. You've done enough. Sometimes he listened. Sometimes he didn't. 6 months passed. Jenna still stopped by the daycare once in a while. Not officially, just to wave at the kids, check in on the new staff, make sure Denise was okay. One day, as she sat with a small group of children during snack time, a little boy named Carter leaned over and whispered, "Is your dog magic?" Jenna chuckled. "Why do you ask?" "Because you said he smelled the bad stuff in the chicken. My dog can only smell socks." "Well," she smiled, "Axel's nose is something special, but it's not magic. It's training and trust." Carter squinted at her. "But you trusted him?" "Always." He nodded like that made perfect sense. "I want a dog like that." "Me too," Jenna said quietly. That night, Jenna took Axel for a long walk past the park, under a sunset that looked like someone had spilled watercolor paint across the sky. She watched him trot beside her, slowing now with age, his pace more deliberate. He wasn't a pup anymore, but he was still alert, still listening, still hers. At the end of the path, she sat on a bench and looked out across the trees. "You saved them, you know," she said softly. Axel placed his head on her knee. "You saved me too." And for the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe it was over. Thank you for following this story to the end. It's been a journey of instinct, trust, and courage, centered on a dog who refused to be ignored when something felt wrong. Now we'd love to hear from you. What would you do if your dog warned you of danger no one else could see? Have you ever experienced a moment when trusting your gut or your pet changed everything? Let us know in the comments. And as always, thank you for being part of this story.